Everything you thought you knew about forgiveness is keeping you trapped in the same painful patterns over and over again. What I'm about to share with you will completely change how you understand forgiveness, healing, and why some people seem to effortlessly release resentment while ours stay stuck for decades. The difference between radical forgiveness and traditional forgiveness isn't just semantic. It's the difference between staying a victim of your circumstances and becoming the architect of your own emotional freedom. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why traditional forgiveness often fails, how radical forgiveness transforms your entire relationship with pain, and the specific steps you can take to start practicing this revolutionary approach today. If you're someone who's tried to forgive but still feels triggered by certain people or situations, this video is specifically for you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because we're going to dig into concepts that most people never learn. And I don't want you to miss any of our content on mental wellness and personal transformation. Let me start with something that might shock you. Traditional forgiveness, the kind most of us were taught, actually keeps you stuck in victim consciousness. When you say, "I forgive you," using traditional methods, you're essentially maintaining the story that someone did something wrong to you, but you're choosing to be noble about it. You're still holding on to the identity of being wrong, even as you try to let go of the anger. This is why traditional forgiveness feels so difficult and often doesn't last. You might forgive someone on Sunday and find yourself angry at them again by Wednesday. You're fighting against your own nervous system because part of you is still convinced you were victimized, while another part is trying to be spiritual or mature by forgiving. Radical forgiveness, pioneered by Colin Tipping in his groundbreaking work, operates from a completely different paradigm. Instead of forgiving someone for what they did to you, radical forgiveness invites you to consider that nothing actually happened to you in the way you originally thought. This isn't about denying reality or minimizing harm. It's about fundamentally shifting your perspective on what occurred and why it occurred. The core principle of radical forgiveness is this: what if every person who has ever hurt you was actually playing a perfect role in your soul's evolution? What if every painful experience was designed to help you grow, heal, and become more of who you're meant to be? This perspective doesn't make harmful behavior acceptable, but it does make your healing independent of other people's actions or apologies. Traditional forgiveness requires the other person to be wrong, so you can be magnanimous in pardoning them. Radical forgiveness recognizes that from your soul's perspective, everything that happened was perfect for your growth, even if your human ego experienced it as painful or unfair. Now, before your mind starts protesting, let me be clear about what radical forgiveness doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that abuse is okay. It doesn't mean you should stay in harmful situations. It doesn't mean you caused you trauma or deserved mistreatment. What it means is that your emotional freedom doesn't depend on other people being different, apologizing, or being punished for their actions. This is where the connection to the law of attraction becomes important. When you hold on to traditional forgiveness, you're still vibrating at the frequency of victimhood, even if you've said the words, "I forgive you." The law of attraction responds to your dominant vibration, not your conscious thoughts. So if you're still energetically carrying the wound, you'll continue to attract situations that confirm your victim story. Radical forgiveness shifts your vibration completely. When you can genuinely see a painful experience as serving your highest good, you're no longer vibrating as a victim. You're vibrating as someone who transforms challenges into wisdom, pain into power, and setbacks into comebacks. This shift in vibration naturally attracts more empowering experiences into your life. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Traditional forgiveness might sound like this: my ex cheated on me and broke my heart, but I choose to forgive him because holding on to anger is hurting me more than it's hurting him. Notice that this statement still maintains the victim story. You're still the innocent party who was wronged, even though you're trying to let go. Radical forgiveness sounds completely different. My ex's infidelity was exactly what I needed to recognize patterns in my relationships that weren't serving me. It forced me to develop better boundaries, helped me discover my own worth isn't dependent on someone else's faithfulness, and ultimately led me to a much healthier relationship with myself and my current partner. I'm actually grateful for the experience because of who I became through it. Do you feel the difference in energy between those two statements? The first one still carries the vibration of being wronged. The second one carries the vibration of empowerment and growth. This isn't about pretending to be grateful for pain. It's about genuinely recognizing how painful experiences have contributed to your evolution as a human being. Colin Tipping identified several key components that make radical forgiveness so effective for healing and mental wellness. First is the recognition that you are not a victim of your circumstances, but rather a powerful soul, having experiences designed for your growth. This doesn't minimize the human pain you've experienced, but it puts that pain in a larger context of spiritual evolution. Second is the understanding that every person in your life is playing a role in your spiritual development. The people who trigger you the most are often your greatest teachers because they're showing you exactly where you need to heal and grow. From this perspective, your enemies become your allies in disguise. Third is the practice of looking for the gifts in every challenging experience. This isn't toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. It's the genuine search for how difficult experiences have made you stronger, wiser, more compassionate, or more authentic. These gifts become the foundation for genuine gratitude rather than forced forgiveness. Now let's talk about how to do radical forgiveness in practical terms. The process isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's a complete reframe of your relationship to pain and challenge that happens on multiple levels: mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual. The first step is to acknowledge your feelings fully without trying to change them. If you're angry, hurt, or resentful, allow those feelings to be present. Radical forgiveness isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about moving through them to reach a place of genuine peace and understanding. Write down exactly what happened and how it made you feel. Be completely honest about your anger, disappointment, or hurt. Don't try to be spiritual or evolved at this stage. Just be human and authentic about your experience. This emotional honesty is essential because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. The second step is to look for your part in the dynamic without taking on inappropriate blame. This is subtle but important. You're not saying you caused someone else's harmful behavior, but you are exploring how you might have unconsciously participated in creating the situation. Maybe you ignored red flags because you wanted to avoid conflict. Maybe you stayed in a toxic situation because you were afraid of being alone. Maybe you attracted certain types of people because of unhealed wounds from your past. This self-examination isn't about self-blame. It's about recognizing your own power in creating your experiences so you can make different choices moving forward. When you understand your part in attracting or allowing certain experiences, we'll reclaim your power to create different experiences in the future. The third step is the most challenging and transformative: looking for the gifts in the experience. What strengths did you develop that you wouldn't have developed otherwise? What clarity did you gain? How did this experience redirect your life in positive ways? What qualities like resilience, discernment, or self-reliance did you cultivate through this challenge? This isn't about finding silver linings or making excuses for harmful behavior. It's about recognizing the genuine ways that painful experiences have contributed to your growth, wisdom, and strength. Sometimes these gifts are obvious. A painful divorce led to a much better relationship. A job loss pushed you toward your true calling. A health crisis motivated you to prioritize what really matters. But sometimes the gifts are more subtle. Maybe the experience taught you about the importance of boundaries. Maybe it showed you patterns you needed to change. Maybe it developed your compassion for others who have been through similar struggles. Maybe it forced you to rely on your own inner strength rather than depending on others for validation. The fourth step is to practice genuine gratitude for the growth that came from the experience. This isn't gratitude for the pain itself, but gratitude for who you became through your response to the pain. This gratitude is the key to completing the radical forgiveness process because it shifts you from victim consciousness to hero consciousness. When you can genuinely say, "I'm grateful for who I became through that experience," you've achieved radical forgiveness. You're no longer defined by what happened to you, but by how you transformed what happened to you into wisdom, strength, and compassion. Radical self-forgiveness follows the same principles, but focuses on your own mistakes and perceived failures. Traditional self-forgiveness often gets stuck in guilt and shame cycles because you're trying to forgive yourself for being bad or wrong. Radical self-forgiveness recognizes that every mistake you've made was part of your soul's learning process. Instead of "I did something terrible and I need to forgive myself," radical self-forgiveness says, "I made choices that didn't serve me or others because I was operating from unconscious patterns, unhealed wounds, or limited understanding. These experiences taught me valuable lessons and helped me develop the wisdom and compassion I have today." This approach to radical self-forgiveness is particularly powerful because it removes the shame that keeps people stuck in self-destructive patterns. When you can see your mistakes as curriculum rather than evidence of your inadequacy, you naturally make better choices moving forward. The relationship between radical forgiveness and mental wellness is profound. Traditional approaches to healing often focus on processing trauma, understanding the past, and learning coping strategies. These approaches can be helpful, but they often keep people focused on their wounds rather than their wisdom. Radical forgiveness accelerates healing because it shifts your identity from wounded person trying to recover to wise soul who has transformed challenges into gifts. This shift in identity naturally creates better mental health outcomes because you're no longer defining yourself by your worst experiences. Research on post-traumatic growth supports many of the principles behind radical forgiveness. Studies show that people who can find meaning and growth in their traumatic experiences often end up with better mental health outcomes than people who never experience trauma at all. This isn't because trauma is good, but because the process of integrating difficult experiences can lead to increased resilience, deeper relationships, and greater appreciation for life. The practice of radical forgiveness also aligns with principles from the law of attraction and manifestation. When you're holding on to resentment, you're energetically stuck in the past and focused on what you don't want. This vibrational state tends to attract more experiences that confirm your victim story. When you practice radical forgiveness, you're energetically focused on growth, wisdom, and empowerment. This vibrational state naturally attracts experiences that support your highest good. You stop being a magnet for drama and dysfunction and start attracting opportunities for joy, success, and meaningful relationships. If you're finding value in this different perspective on forgiveness and healing, make sure to check out our other videos where we explore related topics like releasing limiting beliefs, transforming victim consciousness, and aligning with your authentic power. And if you know someone who's been struggling to forgive themselves or others, share this video with them. Sometimes a new perspective is all someone needs to break free from years of stuck patterns. One of the most powerful aspects of radical forgiveness is how it transforms your relationship with difficult people who are still in your life. Traditional forgiveness often creates a dynamic where you're trying to rise above someone's behavior while still being triggered by it. You end up in this exhausting cycle of forgiving and re-forgiving the same person for the same patterns. Radical forgiveness creates genuine neutrality when you can see someone's difficult behavior as perfectly designed to help you develop patience, boundaries, or detachment. You stop taking their actions personally. This doesn't mean you don't protect yourself or set appropriate limits. It means you do so from a place of clarity rather than reactivity. This shift is particularly noticeable in family dynamics, where you can't simply remove difficult people from your life. When you've achieved radical forgiveness with a challenging family member, family gatherings become opportunities to practice your new level of consciousness rather than events you dread. The person hasn't changed, but your internal response to them has transformed completely. You're no longer giving your power away to their moods, opinions, or behaviors. You're operating from your own center of peace and wisdom. Let's address some common misconceptions about radical forgiveness that might be coming up for you. Some people worry that if they stop being angry about what happened to them, they'll become naive or vulnerable to future harm. But the opposite is actually true. When you're operating from healed consciousness, you make much clearer decisions about people and situations. Anger and resentment cloud your judgment and keep you reactive. Peace and wisdom help you see situations clearly and respond appropriately. Someone who has achieved radical forgiveness is actually less likely to be taken advantage of because they're not operating from unhealed wounds that make them vulnerable to manipulation. Another concern is that radical forgiveness means you can't seek justice or hold people accountable for their actions. This isn't true either. You can take appropriate action to protect yourself and others while maintaining inner peace about the situation. In fact, action taken from a place of clarity and wisdom is often more effective than action taken from anger and resentment. The goal of radical forgiveness isn't to become passive or to excuse harmful behavior. The goal is to become free from the emotional charge that keeps you stuck in victim consciousness, so you can respond to life from your highest wisdom rather than your deepest wounds. Radical forgiveness also doesn't mean you have to have relationships with people who have harmed you. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. You can achieve complete radical forgiveness with someone and still choose not to have them in your life if that's what serves your well-being. The beauty of radical forgiveness is that it makes these choices from a place of self-care rather than punishment. You're not avoiding someone because you're angry at them. You're making conscious choices about who gets access to your time and energy based on what supports your highest good. For those interested in exploring Colin Tipping's work more deeply, I recommend starting with his book, Radical Forgiveness, a revolutionary 5-stage process to heal relationships, let go of anger and blame, find peace in any situation. The book provides detailed worksheets and processes for applying radical forgiveness to specific situations in your life. Tipping's approach includes both individual work and guided processes that can help you move through the stages of radical forgiveness systematically. Many people find that working with a trained radical forgiveness coach or participating in workshops accelerates their progress with this approach. But you don't need special training or tools to begin practicing radical forgiveness. You can start today by simply asking different questions about your challenging experiences. Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "How might this experience be serving my growth?" Instead of, "How could they do this to me?" ask, "What is this person teaching me about myself?" These questions don't require you to have answers immediately. Sometimes the insights unfold over time as you become ready to receive them. The key is to remain open to the possibility that there might be a higher purpose to your experiences, even the painful ones. As we wrap up our exploration of radical forgiveness versus traditional forgiveness, I want to emphasize that this isn't about replacing all other forms of healing or therapy. Radical forgiveness can work beautifully alongside counseling, energy work, meditation, and other healing modalities. In fact, many people find that radical forgiveness accelerates their progress with other healing approaches. The key difference is that radical forgiveness focuses on transforming your relationship to your experiences rather than just processing them. It's about moving from, "I survived what happened to me," to "I'm grateful for who I became through what happened to me." This shift in perspective can happen in a moment, but integrating it fully into your life is usually a gradual process. Be patient with yourself as you explore this new way of understanding forgiveness and healing. Some experiences might be easier to reframe than others, and that's completely normal. Start with smaller hurts and work your way up to more significant traumas as you become more skilled with the process. Each time you successfully apply radical forgiveness to an experience, you're building your capacity to handle bigger challenges with the same level of grace and wisdom. Remember that the goal isn't to convince yourself that harmful things were actually good. The goal is to recognize how you've grown through your responses to challenging experiences and to allow that growth to transform your relationship to the past. When you master radical forgiveness, you become someone who can't be victimized because you transform every experience into wisdom. You become someone who attracts healthier relationships because you're not carrying the energetic residue of old wounds. You become someone who contributes to healing in the world because you've learned to see challenges as opportunities for growth, rather than evidence of life's unfairness. This is the true power of understanding the difference between radical forgiveness and traditional forgiveness. It's not just about letting go of the past. It's about reclaiming your power as the creator of your own experience and the author of your own story. Your healing journey is unique, and radical forgiveness is just one tool in your toolkit for creating a life of greater peace, joy, and authentic success. Whether you're dealing with family trauma, relationship betrayals, workplace conflicts, or your own past mistakes, the principles of radical forgiveness can help you transform pain into power and wounds into wisdom. The choice is yours. You can continue trying to forgive in ways that keep you stuck in victim consciousness, or you can explore this revolutionary approach that has the potential to set you free from the past once and for all. The difference between radical forgiveness and traditional forgiveness might just be the key to unlocking the healing and transformation you've been seeking.